Om Shanti and welcome to Interview with the Raj Yogi. Our theme tonight is part 2 of the power of pure vibrations. And as usual, we'll start with a reflection. We are used to thinking about matter, physical matter, as energy made up of atoms vibrating at a certain frequency, such that there might be solid or liquid or gas, different frequencies or vibrations really shape what that matter demonstrates, how it presents, and of course how we interact with it. The quality of that energy shapes the quality of our experience. As living beings, I am also energy. We even refer to ourselves this way sometimes. I have a lot of energy, I don't have a lot of energy. But we literally are energy. As I go inside, I hold this awareness of myself. I am energy, but not physical energy. Living or spiritual energy. Very unique, able to think and feel and decide, quite complex activity that physical energy cannot do. I am light, spiritual energy, very subtle, concentrated into a single point, a distinct entity. I am a soul. And I feel the presence of myself, this form of energy behind the forehead. I am here, behind the forehead. And I too am transmitting a frequency, creating a vibration. And I interact with other forms of energy, physical or other human souls. The wonder of the self. And what is that impact of vibration? Both the impact I have, my vibration, on matter, and the impact of the vibration of matter on me. This relationship through vibrations. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. And welcome to the second part of the interview, the Raj Yogi topic, the power of pure vibrations. So this may not seem like it's relevant, but it is the last of the food and spirituality series. And so we were sharing last week about the most subtle level of impact that one can have. And of course that can also, we're using the example of food, it can actually be something that can be present in food. Now we're just talking about this aspect of food again. Can you say that vibrations is kind of like food? It can really feed me, the soul?
Yeah, as we've discussed on earlier sessions in the series, that when it comes to physical food, there seems to be two aspects, which I think most people are to some degree aware. There is the physical matter, the state of that, and there's also the vibration. So we can say that, this food's very comforting, or I feel a lot of love in the food, or the care that the person who prepared the food put into it seems to come through. Grandma's apple pie is filled with her love. So there's vibration of a spiritual nature, the invisible energy, and then there's the more physical energy. Both are carried in physical food.
Just when you were sharing, I was thinking about physics. For those who, you don't need to know anything about physics, but I was just remembering when I was taking a physics class about learning how sound needs air to travel through, light needs some sort of medium, like, again, air or water or something like that. Vibrations, we talk about vibrations in food. But can vibrations, does it need I don't know if that's really a fair question, a medium? Like, can you just vibrate something and then it can have the same impact on others just through thoughts versus having to have those vibrations in food?
Thoughts themselves create a vibration. Feelings carry vibration. It's invisible vibration, but this came up once in a conversation with someone. It was very interesting, this idea that you can't, in a vacuum, you can't have anything really going on. So when we talk about spiritual vibrations, and what we were sort of feeling was that silence carries vibrations the most effectively, spiritual or invisible vibrations. The more silence, the more purity there is, the more the vibration is carried. So you'll often see that when souls are cooking in a sacred setting at a temple, or there's a lot of silence. There isn't a lot of worldly chit-chat going on. We say it's because we're performing a sacred act, but it's actually helping to carry the vibration into the matter, or carry the vibration into the atmosphere. So silence is a very powerful conductor for spiritual vibrations. And silence, we're not just talking physical silence that's created through truth, through reflecting on the truth.
Thank you. That was so helpful in terms of the medium, because back to the whole physics example, I remember learning, like, if sound was to travel through something really thick, right, and really viscous, versus sound traveling through water. I'm not sure. You used to swim with someone, if you would hear something underwater versus through air. This is obviously physical examples. The speed that it travels, the clarity, makes me think about silence when there is, which is so invisible. And I guess we were talking about, like, if there's so much noise inside, can someone really feel take benefit from vibrations or thoughts?
Yeah, I think the vibration in water, the sound is distorted a little bit, but I think that if there's a lot of noise or interference, like white static, if you will, of very troubled or anxious thoughts, then it just distorts the vibration. It's not a pure vibration. So there's a vibration that's getting all distorted. I'm remembering being in the spiritual headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris and going on a little tour of the kitchen, and it's massive. It's cooking for tens of thousands of souls. You think it would be a pretty noisy place. It's physically spotless, which in itself is phenomenal. But I remember particularly going into where they bake bread, and you could meditate in that space. There was the vibration, the silence was just beautiful. And you just feel like this must be the best bread on the planet, because it's cooked in this, baked in this incredible atmosphere and all of those vibrations. Now, the thing that's unique, I think, is when I am at the highest level of vibration, the moment I link to the Supreme Soul, it's really like having your phone and then plugging it into a speaker. it is emitting sound, and a pretty good sound, but the moment I plug it into the speaker, it is enhanced and amplified. So when I plug into this pure source, the spirit, the Supreme Soul, whatever vibration I've got, however far I've been able to get with it through silence, it's going to be amplified, which is why we talk about the power, this very pure vibration when I'm in yoga. Silence and yoga is the highest.
It's interesting you're sharing that, because it feels like it's already, I'm not sure how to use the phrase, like as if it's already in this law of karma that then you would have to obviously be in a very pure space to link with the Supreme Soul or spiritual parent, for there to be, of course, then a very natural, pure benefit. Because unfortunately it is what has unfolded, but we do have perceptions of this being, and we also have biased perceptions, and it's like, this is my God, this is, he's going to help me, not you. Maybe not overtly that way, but to use that, I guess, for selfish gain. It's as if you can't, if you're not in a great place, you can't even link to that soul to amplify impact.
Yeah, definitely. We have started to connect to God. We'd started to connect to God through desires, that we wanted certain desires to be fulfilled, and yet we're talking about pure vibration. These are on two different ends of the spectrum. I'm trying to create a pure vibration, which means free of desires, and yet I'm going to that being with desires. So obviously we actually want to go to have a very pure experience, not to have. So there's a method that we use so that we can have this very pure connection with the Supreme Soul.
Now, just backing up a little bit, when you were sharing about, just this inner silence that allows me to be able to benefit, it's really easy, and because we hear it all the time, and I think it's because we're oftentimes projecting our concerns that we have internally onto what we see out there. So we're always trying to help others when ultimately it's ourselves. So when it comes to myself and I'm trying to be able to benefit myself, and there's all this noise inside, and I that's why it's quite eye-opening about what is this relationship of silence and vibration. What do I need to do for the silence? Because when you were sharing, it's not physical silence. And we have had endeavors or maybe perceptions of trying to have that silence, and it can be quite forced.
And the approach that Raj Yoga takes is to the point that we call the organization a university. The approach we take is through spiritual study. This starts to play. There have been many rituals and practices, but introducing this element of study really changes the playing field. So I'm going to introduce understanding of eternal truths into the equation. And it's amazing the role that understanding can play in terms of bringing us to a state of being at peace with things. So very simple example, if I witness something and I start having very confused and chaotic thoughts, someone can give me a piece of information that helps me to understand what I just witnessed, and all of that chaotic thinking will finish. So the power of understanding is tremendous in terms of creating less noise, being more at peace inside. So we use spiritual understanding a lot in our practice to create that freedom from the inner noise and moving more into what we call true silence, which isn't to be confused with emptiness. So very often I know this was an experience I had, and I think it's common for those who are in the kitchens at Brahma Kumari service places, is they will be engaging. It's quite ironic because we talk about churning food. They will be engaged in churning knowledge as they're preparing food, because that churning of knowledge brings us into a state of that true silence, where my inner world is filled with the sound of truth, the sound of what is eternal, That's true silence. Not empty at all, but what is eternal is extremely peaceful.
Can you clarify more what it means to churn knowledge?
Yeah, the example that we give is a cow. So, which I like because it's rather a miraculous thing that happens with a cow. That's chewing on this green stuff called grass, and then all of this stuff happens inside, and milk comes out, which is very sustaining. That is a miracle. And it's not even green milk. So, wow. Churning is not to be confused with intellectualizing or being clever. That's the exact opposite thing I want to do. But it does mean that I'm trying to hold spiritual knowledge to such an extent that I start to experience it. So I need to kind of string together coherent thoughts on a particular point, start to extract the significance, start to extract the experience. I think it's kind of an art, actually, which we're not taught often in worldly schools. We're taught to be clever or intellectualize or analyze or dissect. And so, I remember being in school in something like Shakespeare, where it looks like we're analyzing Shakespeare, or we're dissecting it and slowly destroying it. So we start to pick it apart, and we might call that churning, but it never took me into an experience of what Shakespeare had been writing about until I went to see the play, and suddenly the significance exploded and the experience exploded. And so that's what we want to have. Just as when I'm chewing on food, it doesn't just sit in my mouth and I chew and chew and chew it. Eventually I want to swallow it, digest it, and become it.
So is there sort of any indicators, like when I'm trying to churn knowledge, that I might be veering off in the wrong direction? Because it seems like, I know it's a previous session, but you can still experience things in the mind, so it can be quite deceptive.
Churning ideally should take me into silence. It should take me into essence. It should take me to a point. So if it's not, then I might be doing something else.
What would happen if one is more intellectual? What would that take me to?
Cleverness, but I would start to see that it's not really necessarily improving my link with the Supreme Soul, nor helping me to address my own behavior. I'm not having realizations.
At the level of feeling, what would one feel? Let's say essence. I didn't realize that that's a spiritual term. When I spoke to a coworker, it's like, we should be essence. It's like, I don't even know what that means.
Right. One thing I always enjoyed when I met the senior students, which we call daddies and dadas in the organization, is they were extremely light, and I never got the feeling that they really thought a lot. In fact, they'll even say quite a bit, you think too much, especially to those who are Western trained in schools, etc. You think too much. Now, they're experiencing a lot, but they're not thinking a lot. So even when I would listen to their lectures, some might say, wow, it's really basic and repetitive, but they were literally trying to give us an experience of what goes on inside their head and how they arrive in a very powerful connection with the Supreme Soul using knowledge, or a very powerful experience of their true self using knowledge. I don't want to land up kind of, I liked how it was described today, kind of, this intoxication of how clever I am. I don't want to land up there. I want to land up in the experience of who I am. So simple is very good.
That's so powerful that, to be able to recognize the difference between the difference between the two, like to feel that difference. And I think that this is really more about the questions. It's kind of like fitness class. It's like, the instructor is giving cues, but I'm trying to feel, well, how would I know? How would I? What are the feelings that I would have? So that's very really useful.
I'll be honest with you. I think this is a real challenge for people. It's your question connects to a much bigger question of how do I look honestly at myself? Period. quite frankly. I can engage in behaviors and not really be aware of what I'm doing. And I'm being in some way sustained by it, but I don't realize actually. So this honesty with the self is really, really important. And again, is it taking me into a more peaceful place? Is it connecting me to the Supreme Soul? Is it leading to realizations on my own behavior? Is that happening?
So it's interesting you're sharing because, there are certain vibrations, I guess, that I would have if I was in, just floating on this, we call it intoxication, but this feeling of being of goodness for the self, that's actually cleverness versus the feeling of self-respect. And that's interesting because on the worldly level, even that word self-respect, we have sort of taken that in the wrong way.
Yeah, no, and definitely I call it, feeling good about yourself for all the wrong reasons. But we kind of reinforce it for each other, so we're not aware we're doing it. It's of course going to come and go. So that's always a good sign.
If it's a false
form, it fluctuates a great deal. So that, if I am actually digesting this, I'm becoming more powerful and more stable and more light. Again, these sort of what we call dharana or character that's emerging. Because again, with physical food, I could be eating physical food, but there could be something funny with the body such that I don't actually take the nutrients in. I'm not getting strong. This can happen too with spiritual food, that I'm chewing it, I'm thinking about it, and everything, but I'm not actually absorbing. It's not assimilating into my state of being, so I'm not getting more powerful.
Now, so the reason why I was asking about the whole churning knowledge, because when you're sharing it, that we are actually having, this is food for me, the being, and I'm trying to extract the experience of significance. But since we are talking about this aspect of food and spirituality, I remember learning, actually, this is quite recent in terms of cooking food. And what happens like when you're actually cooking food, that you can actually, just have an impact and influence on the food for that to create, for that vibration to be in it, versus if you just bake something. Like this was, really useful information I found.
I think, it's interesting, this most, I think the most refined, most subtle vibration, which is pure spiritual vibration. It's so subtle, I don't even know if we can consciously, I am now putting this vibration into food. I just sort of have to, over time, patiently, my frequency needs to change so that it will naturally go into the food. This is a point that almost offends, I know, some students, but it was very, very common in the original days of the organization. It's a very, very sensitive topic. I appreciate it is, because food, as we've talked before, is how many show their love, and quite frankly, some even get their sense of value from it. Again, that false self-respect. But in the beginning of the organization, it continues many places. Sometimes it's just too exhausting to try to fight, but only selected souls would be in the kitchen. And you definitely see that in the headquarters. I can tell, back to that bread making department, I can tell the brothers in there were handpicked. They are yogis, handpicked. The vibration is naturally going into the food because of their stage. Souls get very upset if they're not allowed in the kitchen. They literally think, I'm not good enough, I'm not pure enough. It's like, quite frankly, the question you asked, it's not a case of I'm now putting pure. It's a stage of the vibrations are naturally there because of my practice outside of the kitchen. How my quality of yoga is outside of the kitchen. It will naturally be there when I'm in the kitchen. So it's not sort of I'm consciously, but if I am yogi, it's going in. So it's a very, very sensitive topic, but it's quite a fascinating part of this organization. It's, yeah, those in the kitchen. And personally, I'm not offended. I never have been, because I appreciate, I'm happy. I'm delighted that there are such powerful yogis, because then I know the food that we're enjoying when we're, in the dining room, I know it's been prepared by power. I feel very thankful that there is that system of having the really true yogis in the kitchen, the ones who really work on their practice. So then we all benefit. There's pure vibrations in the food.
I feel like you read my mind, because there was the intention of leading up to why I asked this question, is because it's back to the whole thing. It's like I'm trying to help others, or I'm trying to do something. And that's a very physical example. But when it comes to the subtler part about, again, like I can't benefit when there's no inner silence. Like there could be a lot of noise inside going on, and I won't be able to even benefit from the vibrations of, let's say, a certain atmosphere. So the reason I was asking about this was actually this: what does the part of disinterest play in terms of being able to have more inner silence?
I think for many of us, disinterest is the precursor, the preparation, even the signal that I am ready to embark on this journey into silence, because this journey into silence is going to demand so much letting go. And so if I still have a taste for certain ideas or beliefs that are keeping me in a noisy place, if I'm still craving that inner activity, then it's going to be very difficult to let go of it. But if it's like, you know what, I'm not interested in thinking this way anymore. I've had enough of it. I'm really open. That's kind of the state we need to be in to be able to participate or cooperate with the practice. It's going to be required to go into silence. There's a lot of letting go. And when I say letting go, again, it's not emptiness. It's letting go to a different way, to something different. So I need to kind of be done. I've done enough, been there, done that with the way I think or the attitudes I have, and I'm ready to let go and explore something different.
So when I haven't really let go, there are subtle expectations.
There is.
It's unfolding.
Yeah, there's a lot of mixing. So imagine you're making something in the kitchen, using that example, and there's a recipe there, and it's saying if you follow the recipe, you will get this result. But you decide you're going to improve on the recipe by using some of your own old ideas. I'll just mix a little bit. You're going to get something different. That's the bottom line. It might be better, I don't know, but you're going to get something. So very often we'll take our old stuff the way that we want, even though it's not working anymore, and we know in our heart it's not working. We just don't have enough disinterest. We still are addicted to it. So we kind of mix it in. And so we're working with completely different ideas.
So in a way, when you were when I was using the example, okay, I'm going to now inject this kind of energy into the food. Couldn't there be subtle forms of expectation? So this is going to make this person really peaceful. They're going to feel a certain way. And in a way, you're blocking, right, that there isn't this silence internally for you. You're not really even doing anything from a place that isn't really directed towards something.
Yeah, ultimately a yogi would not be thinking of another person. If you're a real yogi, you just are in love with God. It's a deep love for God. That deep love will benefit everybody. You don't even need to. So it's like, I'm going to make this so I can really help this person or change this person or get them to study Raj Yoga or whatever. I'm so busy with these desires of what I want this food to do, that there's no space to remember God, because I'm busy thinking about somebody else. So a true yogi is absorbed in love for God. Highest vibration going into that food.
No, we were listening to a class this evening about the example of the sun. The sun doesn't. Okay, I'm gonna shine at this certain time, not at this certain time. I guess I was thinking about what is the power of pure vibrations. That it's like as if it's not really directed towards anyone particular.
One of the terms that we use around purity, there's 3 aspects to purity. I was thinking about this last night as I was churning on this, I guess, last night as I was drifting off. These 3 aspects of purity. There is contentment or freedom from desire. So I'm very full, no desires. Very pure feelings to the self and others, so self-respect, respect for others. So this is purity in interactions. It's very beautiful. And the third one, the big one, which really the other 2 are based on, is detachment, letting go. So we say, pure means nothing foreign mixed in, so none of these body-conscious sort of forces of attachment or greed or ego, none of that. So very detached. And wherever there's this level of detachment, or if you prefer the word unconditional, it's the exact same thing. There will be this incredible, unlimited love for everyone and everything. It'll just be there. It's effortless. It's just a state of being. That vibration is, even though it's my act is a detachment, the vibration is benevolent. A being who is unconditional, that is, they don't put conditions on things. I will like you if you sit on the right side of the room, or you wear pink today, or you act a certain way to me, or I'll love this situation if it goes this way, or very selective love, very conditional. There's always conditions. That's not a pure vibration. So they obviously go together. The contentment, the self-respect, and this detachment, the fullness go together. But this sense of just being, just benevolent feelings because I have no conditions, that's such a pure vibration to go into food. So detachment is huge in creating that very pure love.
Now, what kind of feelings would come up then in terms of being able to be that benevolent? When, let's say, someone comes up, Judy, I'm struggling with my journey of spirituality. I want to take the course. Can you give me the course? And from your space, how easy, I guess, not you directly, but just someone in that position where they could sort of like take that on personally and have certain expectations of, how this individual will be impacted, yet at the same time you sort of still have to reciprocate somehow, or we still do give the course, right? We don't sort of hide away. So obviously it's not about trying to curtail a certain kind of consciousness inside, but what would be the sign that one is able to, I suppose, you're not really necessarily helping someone, but it is like an opportunity for somebody else to benefit without it be like, okay, now I'm going to help somebody.
It was brought up again in our lesson today, this idea of service and what is disservice. And I liked the way it was explored today, that unless there is God in between me and everything, it is disservice. So it's very helpful because it can get very complicated, as you shared. So it's like, you know what, I just insert, I just am focused, I'm just exploring, I keep my relationship with God. Because the reason is, I want to only take from that being. I do not want to take in even subtle ways from anyone else. I only want to take from that being. It will keep me safe. It will keep everyone else safe. Otherwise, in subtle ways, I'm giving suffering. Really, I'm using other people to make myself feel good. And so I only want to take from that being. So if someone comes and I'm like having all sorts of mixed signals, it's such a relief. I know what to do. Remember the Supreme Soul. It will sort things out. I know it seems flimsy, but it actually does sort things out. If I just bring that being in between, the heads and hearts start to work properly. I don't have to be clever. I just have to use God.
So we're running a little bit late on purpose because we actually started late with the technology once again. So we just also want to remind, if souls have questions, you're welcome to type in the Instagram chat box or on the YouTube chat box and let us know.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's such a beautiful topic, the power of pure vibrations. And, I was thinking about this word oxymoron, in terms of when you're talking about detachment and unconditional love, especially perhaps because we have these old ideas about what that is, to be able to actually let go. And there's this unlimited experience.
Yeah, I don't think it would really be sorted out without introducing the Supreme Soul. I really don't, because it, as you said, a vacuum, nothing's going to happen. Nature abhors a vacuum. So I'm trying to release. Basically, I'm trying to release a paradigm. Is what I'm trying to do. I am trying to shift myself into a different operating system. One of the examples that we often use and joke about is, when you take your fitness instructor exam, one of the questions on it is, what is the most overused muscle in the human body? And it's the hip flexor. And I know that might be a surprise to you, but the hip flexor is so overused. That's where the crease of the hips, so as I'm seated, that crease, that's the hip flexor. It's just crazy how much we use it. And that means that other muscles don't get to fire. It's a totally wrong operating system. So even though I know it and I want to stop doing it, it's become so dominant that it just keeps firing. Even if because the other muscles are now other operating, it's atrophied. So, I need to kind of have a way to transfer to stop this from firing. So we introduce this kind of bridge, if you will, between the new and the old operating system, and that bridge is the Supreme Soul, right? So I'm going to direct all my dysfunctional behavior at that being, and that being is so functional that it's going to help to put me right, and then that being's no longer needed. So I'm letting go of everything, but I actually can't let go of everything. I can't have zero attachments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all my attachments and invest them in one place, the Supreme Soul.
What does that mean when you say it directed? Like, is it like that? I just focus on my relationship with him, remembering him, versus trying to figure all this stuff out there.
The term that they would use is have all relationships with the Supreme Soul. Deposit everything in that being. Right now, as we say, our heart has been split into multiple pieces, all these different places that we're going for attainment. If I can go to one place that's super healthy for attainment, true attainment, because these attainments turned out to be loss, then that would be great. So I'm taking all my eggs and putting them in one basket. All relationships with that one. And so those souls are in the kitchen. Those that can have all relationships with one, they are in the kitchen. And I have no problem with that. I'm delighted that we have that happening.
Well, thank you. It's it could have probably been the third and fourth topic. But it actually leads very lovely to our next series, actually, which is about spirituality and day-to-day living. And so we've already sort of have some topics sort of to lead into that. So I found that the topics, at least for the spirituality and food, has been very lovely, because it does feel like it's really easy for us to sort of jump over some certain steps.
Yeah, definitely continuity.
All right. So stay tuned. Join us next week. If you have topics that you would like to be covered in the Raj Yoga interviews, you're welcome to email us. Of course, you're welcome to always type them in the chat box as well. But I suppose we will have a little reflection.
None of us are inexperienced in this aspect of doing something with our hands, performing some activity, and thinking about something else. We actually are quite experienced in this. Our hands can be busy and our mind can be elsewhere. Whatever my mind is connected to, whatever my thoughts are absorbed in, it creates a vibration. And so this idea of performing actions, preparing a meal, and my mind might be thinking about work or projects or people, children. And if I'm thinking about work, it might be self-respect issues, greed issues. So that vibration goes into the food. Thinking about children, it might be attachment. What if I was thinking about God while I was preparing a meal? This completely pure being who lifts me into a different experience of myself. Very elevated experience of myself, where I feel so content, such a deep state of bliss. What if I was preparing food in that state? No expectations, no conditions, no desires. Completely free, light, full. No hunger in the soul as I'm preparing that food. Something to experiment. The hands being busy and the heart being completely with that beautiful being. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Judy. And thank you for those who joined online. And so we have sent some updates of upcoming sessions, but I will ask you, Judy, what upcoming sessions do we have?
I don't know why I do this because I'm so bad at it. You should do it.
Because
you know
I
more.
have to be in the back for the IT.
Okay. I know we're into August. Our regular programming will continue. So these sessions are drop-in meditations on Tuesday, Thursday, Sundays, a full hour. Third Sunday of the month is World Meditation Hour. Although if you listen to me, it seems like it's every Sunday. But it's the third Sunday of the month. We do have a couple of workshops. The dates, I think one's on the 29th. Okay, all right. So the one on the 29th, Pure Heart Within, Pure Love Within, and Inner Fitness will continue as well on Saturdays on the Zoom platform from 2 to 3, and Self-Care will continue on YouTube from 4 to 5 on Saturdays. So visit our website for all the details how to join if any of those are of interest to you. And thank you so much for joining this session. It's very beautiful to have your presence. Om Shanti.